The H-2A program at its core is meant to be a U.S. worker protection program. At the highest level, what it is it's a seasonal foreign guest worker program where workers from, let's say Mexico, can come legally into the United States, work at a farm for a short burst seasonal time frame, and then they're required to go back home. Farmers in the state of Washington have been relying on this program, particularly those in labor-intensive ag, because we have over time seen the diminishing local domestic farm worker population, as I had mentioned a little while back, aging out. The children of the farm workers going on to become engineers, working at Boeing, Microsoft, becoming doctors, teachers, construction, other types of industries. And we don't have U.S. citizens coming out in these rural areas to do these jobs. And so the H-2A program has always been a supplement to these farms to get labor for just 2 months or 6 months, or in some cases 10 months longer, but to fill those gaps where they don't have enough domestic workers currently there. Now, the farmer has to prove that they can't hire U.S. workers. Well, how's that done? Once your contract is approved by the state government, and then it goes on to the federal government, before H-2A workers even come, the job where that farm is going to bring H-2A workers is advertised on an online portal. It's sent out to all the employment offices in the area. And any U.S. workers that fit those skill sets, and many of them are low experience, 3 months experience in farming, some are 1 month's experience, have you pushed a shovel around for a month? You can get a job at a farm. It's just a matter of, do you want to do labor work, and are you willing to work for a short seasonal burst? The wages are guaranteed. Right now in 2025, those wages in our state are going to be $19.92 an hour. And so that's almost $3 over our state minimum wage. Now, when I also say it's a U.S. worker protection program, any U.S. worker that comes and applies for that job, if they're willing, able, and qualified to do the work, the U.S. farm is mandated to hire them. And that worker will get all the same wages, benefits, job conditions that H-2A worker gets. There are a lot of stories and narratives being spun out there that farms are just pushing out domestic workers to bring in all these H-2A workers. Well, here's a couple of stats. So during COVID, WAFLA is a part of a group called the National Council of Agricultural Employers. They did a survey of farmers all across the U.S. that use the H-2A program, and during the time of the survey, there was 100,000 H-2A jobs available. And they says, hey, we want you to report to us how many U.S. people, U.S. citizens, are coming out to apply for these 100,000 jobs during COVID, when tons of industries were shut down, meaning there were a lot of U.S. workers that were unemployed. Unemployment was at its highest it's ever been since the Great Depression, or since the 80s when we had our big glass collapse. How many people came out? Just under 400 people came out to apply for 100,000 jobs. Here in the state of Washington, 2 years in a row, back in, I believe it was 2022, we had brought in about 33,000 H-2A workers in the state. We had a total of 11 people be sent out from our state employment security unemployment services, and they got placed in those jobs. The subsequent year, It was almost 100% increase. We had 35,000 H-2A jobs available, and I think the number was 20 workers were placed. This last year, the state invested, I think, a few $1,000,000 to help ramp up advertisement of these H-2A jobs. And I think the final number in 2024 was we got in the 30s. So again, 35,000 positions, and we had millions of dollars being spent on advertising these jobs, making domestic US people aware of these positions, domestic workers that these jobs are available. But here's the reality of what happens. Because we employ some of our own H-2A workers, and we also screen workers that want these jobs. And where it said, hey, here's the job that's available at XYZ farm. The job is for 4 months. We need you to do hand labor. You might need to do some thinning. We might need you to do some weeding. We might need you to carry some things around. Well, I just want to come for the 4 weeks during harvest time. I don't want to do all those other jobs. Well, that's not what the farm needs. The farm needs somebody there for 4 months. And so then you get that worker disgruntled because they don't want to sign on to the contract. They don't want to do the 4 months full of jobs, and they don't want to just do the hourly work. They want to do the high production, highest paying piece rate type work during harvest time only, and then they want to go somewhere else. So then you get somebody saying, oh, well, these H-2A workers pushed me out. Well, no, it's not necessarily that. The H-2A workers are just committed to doing the entire contract and doing all of the seasonal labor jobs that need to get done at the farm. And not all of them are the prettiest jobs out there, okay? But needless to say, they need to get done. What happens to these farms if they don't use the H-2A program to supplement them? You now run the risk of, I don't have enough people to do the work to run my farm. I now risk losing the farm because we can't produce during the times we need people there. And so I would argue this H-2A program, for the farms that do have it in place, it actually creates job security for those domestic workers that have been working there. Because it means there's team members that come in. Those domestic workers are probably working 10 or 11 months out of the year, and they get laid off during the wintertime. Many of them are supervisors, they're leads, they're equipment operators, they're crew bosses, they're quality control, they're office personnel. So H-2A workers are not necessarily filling all those jobs. So it's creating job security for these domestic workers who maybe now have higher paying positions, more responsibilities. If these H-2A crews were not coming in during these short 2-3 month bursts when needed, then the farm would not survive, and that farm would shut down, and now that smaller domestic crew would lose its jobs.